Hello and welcome to episode 155 of A Stitch in Time. Today is Thursday, September 24th, 2020. I am Carol. You can find me on Ravelry as Knitsnpurls, and I'm coming to you from my home in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, not too far from Vancouver. If you are a first-time viewer, a special hello and welcome to you. Thank you for checking out the podcast. And if you're a returning viewer, hello again and welcome back. I'm so pleased that you've chosen to come by yet again to spend part of your day with me. A huge thank you also to everyone who took the time to reach out and say hello since my last episode. I always so appreciate hearing from you and enjoy the back and forth that this podcast brings. So it turns out when you don't record for a couple of weeks, you have a lot to talk about. I have 4 finished projects, I think 4 new projects, a whole bunch of new yarn, and of course I'll catch you up on what's been going on in my life since the last time we spoke. So as was it Ed Sullivan would say, it's going to be a really big shoe. So settle in, get yourself something to drink, because yeah, it's going to be a long one. I decided, since it is now fall and we are definitely into the fall weather here, that it would be very fitting to have some pumpkin chai latte. So that is what I am drinking today. I'm going to take my very first sip. Yum. Yeah, that's just the fall taste I was looking for. So, I guess I'll talk about my most obvious finished project first, and that would be my lounging top by Joji Locatelli. So before I sat down to record, I recorded a little segment showing it off and talking about it. So I will insert that here. This is my lounging top by Joji Locatelli. The pattern is offered in both a fingering weight and a sport weight version, and I chose the fingering weight option. The original sample was knit in Madeline Tosh Merino Light, and I chose a very similar yarn, Fleece Artist Merino Slim in the coral colorway. And I chose this color because I thought it would go great with these cropped pants that I own that have this orange flowered embroidery at the hemline. I thought this sweater would make a great transitional piece between spring and summer and fall. The pattern calls for 4 to 6 inches of positive ease, but because I prefer a more fitted sweater, I knit the size that was closest to my actual measurements, which is the size small. I also like a little bit more structure, and so I added some waist shaping about 1/4 of the way in from the side seams on the front and 1/3 of the way in from the side seams on the back, just to give it a little bit more shape. This sweater has a sloping hemline, and generally I have not been happy with the sweaters I've knit that have this feature, but I decided I would knit it up and check it out before I decided against it. And I actually don't mind it in this top because there's not a huge difference between the height of the top and the height of the bottom. So how about I give a little spin and then you can see how it looks from all angles. So the sweater is constructed from the top down. You cast on, I think it was for the back first. You do some short row shaping for the shoulders, and you work your way down to the armhole. And then for the front, you pick up along the back shoulder seams and work your way down to the armhole, or the bottom of the armhole. And then you join it in the round and work your way down. And then the last step is to pick up for the neckline and knit a little bit of garter stitch here. So it was a very simple sweater. It took me a little longer than it should have because I got distracted by other projects, go figure. But I'm really glad I finally knuckled down and finished it up because I can see myself wearing this at least a few times before the weather gets too cold. So I'll come in a little bit closer to show you a couple of the features. So as I mentioned, it has a garter stitch neckband. You also do garter stitch here along the edge of the, well, it's not quite a sleeve, it's a dropped sleeve. And then, as I mentioned, there's a garter stitch hem at the bottom. So, yeah, not a whole lot more to say about that. I am really happy with how it turned out. I like how it fits, and definitely would recommend this pattern. What I forgot to mention in that video is that I alternated 2 skeins throughout the top using the helical method. Even though both skeins looked pretty close to each other, I thought I would do that to be safe, and I'm glad I did, and like the way the colors blended with no obvious pooling. So the next project I'm going to talk about are the Altitude socks by Helen Stewart. This is part of the 3rd Handmade Sock Society and is now the 5th out of 6 patterns that I have knit from that. So here they are. The yarn I used is from Madeline Tosh. It's their Euro sock, and the light color is called 11 Light, and the dark color is 11 Dark, and I bought them as a set. So I'll just turn this around a little bit so you can see that there is this chevron striped pattern on the front of the sock, and then the back of the sock and the foot are just plain stockinette. So here, how about I bring that in a little bit closer so you can see. It's got a little bit of texture to it too. Other than that, it's a 1x1 twisted rib cuff, an Eye of Partridge heel, and then you can see that the toe is done in the coordinating yarn. I was a little bit worried about my yarn quantities. I basically had exactly what they were calling for, but as it turned out, I think I had 14 grams of this color, and in the end I only used 10. So I had, as it turned out, plenty to do the socks as written. And then if you've been watching too, I originally wound up my skein and started the first sock out of the center of the skein, but it was significantly darker and more speckled than the outer part of the skein, which I discovered when midway through sock number 1 I started knitting sock number 2 from the outside of the skein. And at first I thought I would just leave it, and then I realized how much I appreciated how well these stripes contrasted with the lighter part of the skein. And so I took sock number 1 out and started again after I finished sock number 2. And as you can see, they've turned out much more similar to each other, and I'm really happy with that decision. So yes, one more pattern to go from that collection, which are the vapor socks, but as of yet I haven't quite finalized the yarn that I want to use for them. And so for now, the pattern's printed out, ready to go whenever I get to that point. So yeah, really love these socks. I've been wanting to find just the right pattern for this yarn. I've had it for I think about a year or so, and I really do like how these turned out. So the 3rd finished project that I have to share with you is another pair of socks. These are the Father's Day socks number 2. So if you've been watching, you know that I gave my husband 3 skeins of yarn for Father's Day. I had knit him a pair of socks from Cascade Heritage Wave back at the beginning of the year out of a brown colorway. And they're his favorite socks. He really likes how soft the yarn is, how it feels. And so I bought 3 more skeins of the same yarn in 3 different colorways and wrapped them up for Father's Day. So I have since knit 1 pair, which is a gray blend, and this is sock number 2, or pair number 2, which as you can see is blue. So the colorway is 511 or blues, and the yarn is a marled yarn with non-repeating stripes. So if you can see, the color does vary as you work your way down the sock very subtly. Some colorways, the changes are more obvious than this one. And you can see it starts light, ends up with the darker part here. So this is a 72 stitch sock, knit from the top down, traditional heel flap and gusset, rounded toe. Nothing fancy. So these, because they're not that exciting, are a great project for watching TV or sitting around chit-chatting, or driving in the, or riding in the car, I should say. I do not recommend driving and knitting. Riding, it's okay. So actually quite a bit of these socks got done in the car. We've been away for the last couple of weekends, and that provided lots of opportunity for car knitting, which I will show you some more of that in a bit. So yay, I'm so happy. I'm 2 out of 3 socks done. I have promised that I will do the 3rd pair before the end of the year. So I think what will happen is once my next pair of stockinette socks is finished, then I'll cast on the 3rd pair, and then that obligation will be off my shoulders. So happy to be done with those. Hi, it is Carol from the future popping in for a couple of minutes. While I was editing, I remembered that I wanted to tell you something strange about this pair of socks. So as I mentioned before, this is now the 3rd pair of socks I have knit from the same yarn, Cascade Heritage Wave. And what's unusual about this pair is that it weighs significantly more than the prior 2 pairs that I've knit. So pair number 1 and pair number 3 are identical in that they both have a 72 stitch cast on and a 7-inch leg. I'd show you pair number 1, but they're in the wash. This pair weighs 97 grams. Pair number 1 weighs only 87 grams. What's even more unusual is that pair number 2 here has a 7.5-inch leg, and it still weighs less than the 7-inch leg on this pair, coming in at 91 grams. The only way I have to account for it is that I knit this pair much more tightly than the first 2 pairs. But when I compare them, that doesn't really seem to be the case. They look pretty similar to me and feel pretty similar to me. And if I line them up, there's not a significant difference between the 2. And keep in mind that this pair has been blocked on a sock blocker, where this one has been worn and washed again and not been blocked. So I'm not really sure what's going on. I have no way to explain it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with pair number 4. I'll keep you posted. My 4th finished project I do not have here to show you. I have, as I mentioned the last couple of episodes, I was working on a secret project, and now that that project has been gifted and received, I can tell you all about it. So before I put the secret project into the mail, I recorded a little segment about it, so I'll put that here. Hi there, it is Carol from the past, here to talk about a secret knitting project that I've been working on for the past few weeks. And now that it has been completed and it has reached its destination, all can be revealed. So back in March, I received a very special birthday gift from a kind viewer and knitter friend named Susan. And it was this really fun print by Eric Johnson. You may be familiar with Eric's wife, Joanna, who is an author of several children's books that have a knitting theme, including Phoebe's Sweater and Freddie's Blanket. And Eric does the illustrations for the books. So in addition to being an author, Joanna is also a knitting designer. And soon after receiving this print, I discovered that she had a pattern for this really fun, stripy, zigzag scarf that the zebra is wearing in this picture. And I knew then that I just had to knit that for Susan and send it to her for her birthday. So that's what I've been up to. So the pattern's called Fruit Stripes, and it's intended to be a scrappy project. In the original, Joanna used about 50 grams of a black fingering weight yarn, and she striped it with about 50 yards each of 4 multicolored fingering weight yarns. So I went stash diving, and unfortunately I didn't have enough of one skein of black yarn, but I did have 2 leftover skeins from the same yarn dyer, Impulse of Delight. One had a blue cast to it, kind of over dyed with blue. The other was kind of over dyed with a red or dark burgundy color. So I alternated those throughout the scarf with 4 multicolored yarns from my sock yarn leftovers, and you will probably recognize at least a couple of them from recent projects. So here it is. Not fun? So the bluish yarn, the colorway was called Stellar. It was inspired by Stellar's jay bird here in British Columbia, and I'm not sure what the other black one, I know it had something to do with blackberries, but I failed to write the name of the yarn on my project page in the first place, and I lost the label for it. So this one here is Sweet Georgia Yarns Tough Love Sock in the Strawberry Tea colorway, and I just used that for my Destination Unknown socks very recently. The next one is Black Cat Yarns in the Sedona colorway. This one is a Miss Babs Yummy yarn in the Jelly Beans colorway, and then this one is another Sweet Georgia Yarns Tough Love sock in Rainbow Sprinkles, which I just used on my Stillness shawl. So I am really pleased with how it knit up. I was worried that it wasn't going to be long enough. The original one was 5.5 inches by 64 inches. And there's a little chart you can check off as you work your way through this scarf. And I wasn't able to complete the last repeat because I ran out of the Jelly Beans colorway. But when I laid it out to block it, it turns out this is about 6.5 inches wide and about 72 inches long. So it is plenty long enough. And you can just, I like to wear my scarves a lot of times like this. And as you can see, there's plenty to wrap and even enough to tie it up if you wanted to. You can see there are lots of ends to weave in, and I did that as I went. I carried the 2 black yarns up the side, but I wove in the yarns. I actually knitted them in as I went, and so that's how it looks on that side. Hopefully the ends stay where they belong. So very simple pattern. It's just a 2-row repeat. You do the stitches that make the zigzags on one row, and then you knit the return row. So it's very simple, easily memorizable, and a great way to use up yarn scraps. So I would highly recommend it. So Susan, wear it in good health, and happy birthday. What I failed to mention is that the pattern also includes a page that you can print out to make these greeting cards. Just print it out, cut it in half there, fold it up, and you're good to go. So of course I sent one of these to Susan, and I will continue to print these off and send them to knit her friends because it's just so darn cute. And I just thought that was a great added bonus for purchasing the pattern. So that is it for all of my finished projects. I would say I'm especially excited about finishing this lounging top because it had kind of lingered on a little bit longer than I was comfortable with. I was knitting away on my swallowtail sweater, and I'm currently in the plain stockinette section between the colorwork yoke and the colorwork bottom. And I thought I could just as well be working on stockinette on this sweater, and I thought it would be wise to finish it up and get it out of the way before I continued work on my swallowtail. So since finishing this, I have indeed picked my swallowtail up again, but I've only done maybe an inch or two of plain stockinette, so it hasn't changed a whole lot since the last time I showed you. So I decided not to bother bringing it in here today. But I do have 4 new cast-ons that I'm really excited about. So let's start with number 1. Last week I told you that I had bought this beautiful yarn from Shew called Mermaid Tail. And it is in their merino sock. There's the Shew label. So it's merino sock, which is an 80/20 superwash merino nylon base. And last week I showed you that I had done a little searching and found this pattern called Mermaid Tail socks that I thought would go perfectly together to make a pair of socks for my future daughter-in-law, who is mermaid crazy and actually owns a couple of mermaid tails that she can swim in. So the pattern features a lace pattern down the front and a textured pattern down the back. It's knit from the top down, and so I have started those, done several repeats. So you can see it has just a 1x1 twisted rib cuff, and it has this lace pattern reminiscent of fins on the front, and then there's a textured, almost like a scale pattern on the back. They are super easy, but just an interesting enough to keep your interest while you're working on them. So I heard back from my son as to what size to knit, because I know she has small feet, but I've never been able to nail down a shoe size before. So if I make them just a little bit smaller than my own socks, they should fit fine. So I'm happy to get started on those. They're going to be either for Christmas or birthday because the 2 occasions are only not even a week apart. And so I will decide as I get closer to the date. So before I finished the Father's Day socks, I was anticipating some car knitting coming up, and I didn't want to be caught short. So I cast on another pair of stockinette socks. And this is also out of a recent purchase. It's this crazy fun yarn it's from Fiberlia. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Fiberlia Casu Marvelous in the Dorothy colorway. And it is also an 80/20 merino nylon fingering weight yarn. And I don't know if Dorothy's a reference to, the Wizard of Oz and Over the Rainbow, but that's how I kind of think of it. And they are knitting up super fun. I like how there's no pooling at all. It's kind of almost micro striped with the colors well distributed. I had this thought, you can see there's areas where these 2 rows of yellow consistently overlap, and I had a little thought about maybe I would purl those yellow stitches just for interest, but I didn't really like the way it looked, so I decided just to stick to a straight on, that's not even right, just a plain stockinette sock. But I thought it would be fun to do some complementary heels and toes. So I went digging in my sock yarn scraps. I found this pink that I think goes really well. And I also found this yellow. So I might do the heel in one color and the toe in the other, or I might just choose one for each. So I'm not really sure yet. I'll decide when I get there. But I thought that would be kind of fun to put those bright pops of color in for the heel and toe. So yeah, loving these. But I made myself put these away. Well, two reasons. One is the yarn is just too fun for the car, because when I'm knitting in the car, I don't really look at my knitting very much, and I decided that I wanted to really enjoy this yarn, and so I'm only sort of knitting on them when I can take more time to look at them as I knit. Also, I decided that since I was getting a jump on my gift knitting, that I would cast on a pair of socks for my brother-in-law for his birthday, which is at the end of November. And so, let's see if that stays put. So let me just see where they are. I have to look around. Ah, yes, here they are. So I was watching an episode of Arnett and Carlos's, not their new Sit and Knit podcast, but their regular Sunday one, where in this one they were talking about how they design the collections of yarn for Regia. And I was drawn into their, now what's it called? Mountains and Fjords collection. So I went looking to see where I might find some of that. And then in the process, I also bought another couple of skeins of yarn just to make it, you know, get free shipping. And I'm always looking for good yarns for gift socks. And so I purchased another couple of skeins of Arne and Carlos yarn, including this one, which is called Bamble, or actually it's not Bamble, it's spelled like Bamble, B-A-M-B-L-E. But I asked my Norwegian brother-in-law how you would actually pronounce it. It's a, not a municipality, or maybe it was a municipality in the Telemark region of Norway. And so he said it would be pronounced like Bamble. So these are my Bamble socks. And they're for my brother-in-law, Ed. And so I got lots of these done in the car. I'm just trying to avoid dropping my stitch marker here while I put them on a sock blocker to show you. So the colorway number is 2460. And it's the Regia design line by Arne and Carlos. So, enough talking, time to show you. So there you go. You can see another top-down sock. That is my preferred method. This is a 2x2 rib, traditional heel flap and gusset, and again I'll do a rounded toe. So I wasn't sure as I was knitting them how nicely it would work out for splitting for the heel and gusset. Sometimes when you knit with self-striping or self-patterning yarns, you kind of end up at a weird point where you want to divide the sock. But this one ended up kind of in the middle of, would be kind of in the middle of this section. And so it has transitioned very nicely into the next part. I think the other sock is slightly farther along. Oh, can you hear that? The heater, the furnace is kicking in. It is officially fall. That hasn't happened very much for a while. It actually came on near the beginning of July when we had this cold, wet stretch of weather. But other than that, now every time it comes on, I'm very, very aware of it. Anyway, yeah, this one is a little bit further. So you can see that after the heel, there's just a little stripe of this speckled part, and then it goes right into this design. So I'm quite happy with how all that worked out. I think they'll look nice when they're all knit up. So yay, gift knitting, a pair of socks already like halfway, more than halfway done. So I feel very good about that. And then I didn't want to lose my stitch marker, but I did on one of them. Or it's a row counter actually. And I just use that to keep track of the decreased rows for the gusset. So I put a number 1 for the row when I have to decrease, and number 2 for the plain row. And that just helps me, even though I can tell by looking at it, it just is a reminder that I'm on the right row. When I finish a row or start a row, I can see what I'm supposed to be knitting. So as I mentioned, we were away for a couple of weekends in a row, and I knew that this past weekend I would have more knitting time. And I've been itching to cast on another shawl, but I didn't know which one. So the night before we left, I was on the Ravelry going through shawl after shawl after shawl, and nothing really spoke to me, or if I liked it, I didn't have the right yarn for it. And then I came across one that I've actually had my eye on for a long time, and it's a Helen Stewart pattern called the Summertide Shawl, and it looks like this. So as you can see, it's a 2-color shawl. It's an elongated crescent shape. It has garter stitch to start and then goes into 2 different lace patterns before ending with this little other lace pattern on the bottom. This hat was originally a knit-along, a mystery knit-along, and I had not participated in it, obviously. I think I came across Helen Stewart patterns later than this date. Can't remember when this was from. But I also liked, part of it was that it worked with one of the yarns I was considering using, but I also liked the thought of it as we were approaching the end of summer, literally. I liked the message. So it said, "There's always a certain wistfulness as the summer drifts towards its end. Our thoughts turn to things like school and schedule, and the freedom and joy of long summer days begins to fade. But there's another side to the end of summertime. As we return from summer vacations and the kids head back to school, pockets of time may begin to open up where you can indulge yourself with projects of your own. It's a time to set off on some adventures just for you." And I just thought, you know what, the timing is just perfect, because it was literally just a few days before the official start of fall that I cast this on. So it just seemed fitting. Everything about it seemed fitting. So I am knitting it from these 2 colors of Earl Grey Fiber Company. Bought this at Knit City last year. It's their Darjeeling sock, which is a 4-ply 75-25 superwash merino and nylon. This is the Desert Bloom colorway, and this is called Patina. You can see the kind of green with the coppery tints in it. So I remember a long time ago looking through projects for this pattern, and I can't remember exactly which one it was at the time that really caught my eye, but some people had, instead of knitting it straight as one color and then switching to the second color and leaving it like that, some people had changed colors in other places. And I really liked that idea of mixing it up throughout. And so I did come across a couple of projects that I really liked. I don't think I wrote down everybody's names, but I kind of took a note. I'm just started looking at my project notes and took a note of where they changed colors and what I liked. So I am copycatting someone else's idea. So what I've done is I've begun the garter section, and I've done a little bit of the lace pattern. So what I've done is inserted a garter stripe of the contrast here, knit two rows of I've knit 2 rows of garter stitch here, 4 rows in the color A, 2 in the color B, and then I've switched back to color A. And I will continue with color A until the pattern does tell you to change, and then you begin this new lace pattern. And I'm going to work my way down, and near the end I'm going to switch back to color A and bind off with color B, I think. I can't remember exactly how I have it planned, but I am going to sort of switch up the colors throughout just to make it maybe a little more interesting. So I love how this is knitting up. It's so pretty. Just love these colors. And I can't wait to see how this starts when I switch to the solid green. I think that's going to be really gorgeous too. So enjoying this very much too. It's a little break from the obligation knitting and all that stocking stitch, because other than the mermaid tail socks that I'm working on here, everything else I'm working on at the moment is stockinette stitch, and so it's nice to have a little break from that. So yes, that is all my knitting projects that I have to share with you. I did last night finally pick up some cross stitch again. Tried out my Light, my new Light, and it's working great to do cross stitch at night, so I'm just thrilled with that. But again, there's not really enough progress on the project I've been working on to show you. So probably next week I will give you a look at what I've been doing with my cross stitch, because I am intending to do some more of that this week. So I'm just going to stop the camera for a minute and do a little bit of cleanup and show you the yarn that has arrived since I last spoke to you. Alright, so I put away all my projects, warmed up my tea, and gathered all my new acquisitions. So are you ready to see them? I admit there have been a lot of acquisitions lately, but this is it for a while. And in my defense, at least every shipment has included at least one skein of yarn intended for gift knitting. So, you know, the rest, gifts for me, but small defense, I know. So I mentioned that I had bought that skein of Arne and Carlos Bomble yarn for my brother-in-law's socks. Originally, I had ordered this yarn with him in mind. This is the Arne and Carlos Mountains and Fjords line. You can see how it knits up there. It's really cool how it knits up. And I really loved this colorway. So my first thought was to make socks for Ed out of this. And then I selfishly decided that, no, I was going to save this colorway for me. So it is color 7028. I did not ask my brother-in-law how to pronounce this, but it's a place name in Norway, I assume. Storjuvtinden. I'm sure that's not how you say it. So I got that skein. I also got the skein that's pictured on the ball band. This is color 7031 Sognfjord. I think that's a little bit closer. And then they had another one that was blues without, I think had blue and purple, didn't have the green, but they are out of stock, unfortunately. But I do have these two skeins anyway to knit up. This will likely be a gift for someone. I'm always looking for good sock yarn for gifts. And then I'm a sucker for Zauberball crazy and couldn't resist getting a couple more skeins. So this one is color 2311 and it's called Route 66. So get your kicks on Route 66. That's how it knits up. And then also this one's so fun. Look how fun that is. This is called Anniversary Party. It is 2389 and then you can see how it knits up there. So yeah, I can't wait to do this one. You can see bits of pink and stuff all hiding in there. So yeah, this is going to be a fun one. So that was waiting for me when we got back from our cabin the weekend before last. And then when we arrived home on Monday, I had another package waiting for me. Thank heavens for sons who come and check our mail and water our plants when we're gone. I should say our daughter does too, but this time And last time happened to be our sons. Not ignoring you, Jessica. So this package was from Fiber Nymph Dye Works, and I had taken advantage of her end of summer sale a few weeks prior. So the package always takes a little longer to arrive from the US. So I was excited to get it, especially because I had ordered this skein to make socks for my younger sister. So the colorway is called So Very Trivial, and it features all the colors from the original Trivial Pursuit game pieces. Now, I always tease my sister that she has a trivial mind because she just holds facts like nobody else I know. And I always say she and I can read the same book. I'll be lucky if I remember the main characters' names and the basic plot line, where she will remember things about, like, not just those aspects of it, but little facts she learns through the book. So, you know, the capital city of X is this, or this is the explorer that discovered this place, or, you know, all these little kind of things that just go by my brain when I'm reading. I concentrate on the main stuff. She picks up all the little trivial things. So I had actually thought I'd ordered the mountain tweed version of this, and so I was a little bit surprised when this arrived. It is the Swoosh 2.0, which is a sport weight, I think, 75/25 superwash Corriedale nylon. But then I realized, no, I just pressed the wrong button. So it'll be a little bit thicker sock, but I think it'll be fine for wearing around the house or in her boots. I don't normally knit this sister's socks. I had knit a pair way back and got the impression that she didn't really wear them much. But then later, I think it was last year, I found out, no, that she did wear them. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and do socks for her, just because I can't not, you know what I mean? And like I said, even if she just wears them around the house on a cold morning or something, that's fine. But yeah, I can't wait to get started with those. And then, of course, like you do, you have to order more than one thing, especially if it's coming from the States and the amount of shipping it takes. So I'd had my eye on this skein for a while. It's the Bounce Base, which is an 80/20 superwash merino nylon, and it's called On Frozen Pond. So it has these shades of blue, and the lightest one is speckled. So that's going to be really pretty for socks. And then I ordered this skein thinking I would do socks for Cameron, my husband. It is the Mountain Tweed base. This one is called Storm Warning, and it is also 3 stripes. So that's going to be fun too. So I might do these up for Christmas. These will be for my sister's birthday in November. And then I couldn't resist this sock blank in all these beautiful jewel tones. It's just a one of a kind. I haven't even unwrapped it yet. So why don't I do that now? We can both gaze at the beauty together. I just think it's so fun knitting off of a sock blank. I really enjoy that. And when I saw these colors, it was like, well, that's just my colors all over the place. There we go. So yeah, that's going to be fun to knit up. And I think I'm going to have lots of time to knit, because now that we've sort of had our last 2 weekends away, I do not really anticipate going away again for a very long time. Not only is there nowhere we really need to go, we're just sort of going to start, you know, hunkering down for the winter, fall and winter, and we'll see what the COVID situation's like again come spring. Are you guys interested in doing like maybe a gift along, knit along? I know my next few months I'm going to be concentrating on knitting up gift items as well as other things. Still want to work on my 20 and 20 list and do some things for myself too. But let me know in the comments either on Ravelry or on YouTube if you're interested in taking part in a gift along, knit along. I'm sure I can scrounge up a project bag as a prize. It will take place in Ravelry. That's the best platform for me. I know not everybody is into Ravelry these days, but that's kind of an Instagram fail, and so for me Ravelry is the best place to hold something like that. So let me know what you think. If I get enough interest, then I'll set that up and announce it next week. So as I mentioned, we have been away the last couple of weekends. So 2 weeks ago we headed up to the cabin to close things up for the season, and we had gone up Thursday night, and the plan was that we weren't going to do anything Friday. We just sort of have a day of holidays, and then Saturday would be spent doing some cleanup and such that we needed to do before we shut down for the season. And then Sunday morning we would drain the water lines out of the cabins and the main pump area where it flows into. There's a word for that. We call it the tank. The main tank needs to be drained, etc. too. So as it turned out, we were running into water issues on Friday morning. So my cousin was actually having plumbing done at his cabin. His friend is a plumber, was changing out the old pipes for new ones. Pardon me. So they were busy with that project, but they had noticed that the water flowing into the tank was coming in really slowly. So that always means there's, that can mean a couple of things. First thing you do is change the filter, because a really dirty filter will mean the water flowing into the tank as, obstructed. So that was the first step, and that didn't really make much difference. And so Cameron and I began walking the line from the spring down to the water tank. Or actually just before the water tank, a little ways upstream from there, is where we break the hose during the winter so that the water from the spring can continue to flow freely. And so we broke the hose there. Wasn't coming out very fast, so we knew there was something going on upstream. Long story short, we eventually found a place. We have the pipes there. It's gravity fed from the spring, so it goes through a box and a filter, and then there's a series of hoses that go from larger diameters down to smaller in order to increase the water pressure, and it basically follows the path of the creek. And in most places, the water lines are actually in the creek. And in one area, the hose had doubled back on itself and caught on a fallen tree. And so there was a kink in the line, and that's why not much water was getting through. So once we found that, straightened it out, we were good to go. But that took a good chunk of Friday. So we didn't really get our nice relaxing holiday day. But water was more important. You never realize how much you need water until you don't have it. Because then you have to revert back to using the outhouses, and you have to go get some water from town in big containers. So you have that on hand. You can't take a shower, all that stuff. So luckily we were not forced to go get water and bring it back. We had enough on hand to drink till we figured out the problem. But that was Friday. And then my sister and her husband came up Saturday around lunchtime. They also live in Chilliwack, where I do, and they mentioned that it was smoky down here from the wildfires that were burning south of the border, and that they had smoke all the way up to about a half hour south of where our cabin is located. And interestingly, that evening we were looking for the stars and could hardly see them, where the last 2 nights they had been so bright and so plentiful, and it was like you could reach out and touch them. And we realized then that the smoke was kind of there, even though we couldn't really see it. And sure enough, the next morning we woke up and it was smoky there too. So we just spent the morning tidying up and draining the lines and headed home, I guess just around lunchtime. Got home about dinner time on Sunday. And it was smoky here. And the next morning, I think it was, woke up and could not see beyond the end of our backyard. I think I took a picture. If so, I will put it in here. Couldn't see the mountains, and it was smoky all week. And it didn't bother me too much until a few days later, and I really started to feel it in my chest. And I remembered that from the last time we had really bad smoke. It just kind of gets in your system. What was I going to say about that? Oh, I stayed inside as much as I could and kept most of the windows closed, but I did leave a couple open a bit just for some air movement. Maybe that wasn't a good idea, but I did it anyway. So then we took off Friday morning for our next weekend away, which was in the Okanagan, and which is another region of British Columbia. It's like a desert-like area. Very good for wine and fruit trees. So this was my husband's golfing weekend. There's a group, usually there's I think 30 or 40 of them that head up in the spring for a few days away golfing. But because of COVID this year, it didn't happen in the spring. They delayed it to the fall, but they only had, I think it was 12 men that were participating this year. And so they opened it up to the wives to come. Only we weren't allowed to golf with them, but we did get together in the evenings for socializing. So I was sort of debating whether to go or not, but my sister and her husband were going, and so I thought, okay, I have someone that I know I can hang out with, and just sort of thought, yeah, you know what, take advantage of the chance to go away again, because I knew that would be it for the year. So it turned out to be a really nice weekend. There was one other wife that I had met before, and mostly during the day we just kind of I did a lot of knitting in our hotel room. It was like a motel with a big courtyard area with a pool and barbecue area. And so part of the day I spent just knitting, enjoying the quiet and solitude. And then my sister and I would get together. The first day we took the guys. The first day we drove directly to the golf course, dropped the guys off, went and checked in the motel. So then we stopped at a couple of wineries on our way back from there. Time to stock up for the winter for our appy nights, Friday night appy nights. And and then I guess we went to the golf course to pick them up and had dinner there. And then the next day, I just knit and stuff for a while, and then try to think if the guys came back from golf. Oh, and then we went to another couple of wineries. And then the next day they finished quite a bit earlier, and again we did a few wineries. And the weather cleared up. I think it was Sunday, woke up to a little less. Yeah, Sunday we woke up, we'd had some rain I think the night before. getting so mixed up with my days. It doesn't really matter what day it was. We had part of our weekend, we actually had some nice clear sunny weather. And so then we had decided to stay an extra night and go golfing, the four of us together, on Monday, which we did, and had a lovely round. It was overcast, but not smoky, and just the perfect temperature for golf. And we just had a really fun time, and got in our car, drove home. And we stopped to get some autumn fruit on our way back. And then unfortunately, about half hour from home, we ran into a backup from construction. So I don't think we got home till about 7 o'clock. So a little later than planned, but a very, very good weekend overall. The whole smoky thing kind of stayed with me for a few days. Actually, today's the first day that I feel like 100%. So I don't have asthma, but sometimes when I have a bad cold, I'll end up with asthma-like symptoms that kind of linger. I've had a puffer a few times to take care of it. So I'm sure just all those particles, just because the smoke disappears doesn't mean your lungs finish dealing with them, I guess. So it took a few days to kind of get back to normal, but I do feel like myself again today, which is... I think I also mentioned last time that we were, or maybe it was the time before, anyway, we had disassembled our backyard shed in anticipation of getting a concrete pad built for it. We probably should have done it. No, not probably. We should have done that in the first place. We thought a gravel pad would suffice, but over the last couple of years, the gravel has settled. It's settled unevenly, and also settled below the level of the frame that the gravel was in, and so it's hard to get the shed doors open. So we decided that's it, we really need to get a concrete pad done. And then at the same time, we got an estimate for a patio pad in front of our deck and sidewalk that would go from our backyard right to the end of our front yard. And we had planned to do that earlier. Various things got in the way. We were looking into it this spring. Of course, COVID hit then. So finally had the guy here, did an estimate, put down our booking deposit, and within the next few weeks, all that work is going to get done. So then we can rebuild our shed, put it back in, put all our patio furniture, etc., away for the winter, and then be set. And also, before we get that done, we have a drip line that goes around our whole backyard because we have a hedge of cedars, and then a couple of gardens that come in off that. So the drip line kind of meanders, comes off the main drip line, goes into these gardens where the trees and such are, to keep them watered, and we just have them on a timer. So what I'm going to do also before the concrete work gets done is extend that drip line into the gardens by the deck, so that all of our gardens are all going to be sort of self-watering, at least in the backyard, so that all we'll have to worry about come summer when we go away next time are the planters. But apparently you can even get, you can even branch off that and just have drip lines going into your planters, so we might look into that when the time comes. But for now, I need to get those that whole irrigation system in place around the deck before the concrete gets done. So hopefully the weather will clear up. We've had, since we got home, all we've had pretty well is rain. And so it was raining really hard this morning. Right now it's overcast. I can see a little bit of blue sky, but it's a bit windy. And I know we're supposed to get some more. So I'll wait till the weather improves a little bit before I get out and do that. Last night, it absolutely poured down rain. But that leads me to my something good, and that is the fall. I was a little bit reluctant to admit that fall was coming. I wasn't quite done with summer. But I have to say, I brought out the Instant Pot yesterday, did a chicken in there, and then immediately after dinner, put the bones on to make soup. And so we sat there in this cozy, warm house with the rain pounding down. It's dark outside, dark and rainy. We're inside, warm and cozy. Had a nice comfort food dinner, and then the soup's bubbling away in the Instant Pot, and it just felt so cozy. So I really have to say, now that it's here, I am enjoying the fall. Fall and spring are my favorite seasons anyway, so I'm not quite sure why I was so reluctant for it to come. I think it's just because summer felt like a bit of a bust this year. It came and went so quickly, and it's been such a strange year. So that's my something good. It is now officially fall, and I really am looking forward to kind of hunkering down, and I'm hoping that this time around it's not technically lockdown, or however you want to phrase it, self-isolating, but definitely we're planning to be home quite a lot. We have once again shrunk our social bubble right back, and I'm hoping to be a little less unproductive. Maybe the better way of putting it is I'm hoping to be a little more productive this time. I'd like to do some tidy up around the house. I want to get back to a regular routine of exercise. I'd like to eat better. I keep laughing about my coronavirus diet. I need to go on a diet thanks to my coronavirus diet. It was very easy the last few months to slip into a less healthy routine. So I'm hoping now with fall that I can get back to doing all those things that I know are good for me. And if I sort of have some plans over the winter, maybe that will help that time pass and won't feel so shut in. I think a lot of us went through a bit of a funk this spring and summer, feeling helpless in the face of everything that was going on or is still going on. I think we now know a lot more about this virus and how it works and how to keep ourselves safe. So the prospect of staying home and staying safe is not quite as daunting and scary and depressing as it was 6 months ago. In a way, I'm kind of looking forward to it. So wherever you are, I hope you are well. Continue to take comfort in your knitting if that's what gets you through the night. Again, let me know if you're interested in like a gift along. I don't care what occasion they're for. You can gift yourself as far as I'm concerned. Just thinking it might be time for a little bit more of a discussion going on in the group. I think it would be fun. So let me know if you're interested in that. And yeah, take care wherever you are, and I hope to see you again very soon. Bye for now, and happy fall. I guess I should have meant that. Happy spring if you are in the southern hemisphere. Bye.